Hey everybody, I'm Andy Smith, your hostess with the mostest. I'm a 30-year comic book veteran, having worked for Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Image Comics, Cross Generation, Ominous Press. You name it, I've probably worked for them. And I do other things art-wise outside of comics in the field of advertising. I've also written some books on drawing comics you might have seen. Drawing American manga superheroes, Drawing Dynamic Comics was my first book. And I also did the handy little How to Draw Superhero sketchbook where all you need is a pencil because you do all the work right inside the book. Enough about that. This is the Book Look series. The Book Look series is where I grab a book off my library. You can see the tons of books I have behind me. And I go through it page by page with you so you can see if it's a book that you might want to buy. I like to know what I want to buy before I buy it, and I feel this is a way to give you some insight into these books. So join me for today's book look. Thanks. Well, hello, I am Andy Smith, your hostess with the mostest, 31-year veteran in the comic book industry, having worked for Marvel, DC, Image. You name it, I've probably worked for them, and I've done work outside of comics for Disney, HarperCollins children's books, and I've written some books on drawing, as you saw in my introduction. So I thought, you know what? I haven't done a book look on my drawing books. So today, we're going to look through Drawing Dynamic Comics by yours truly, Andy Smith. This book came out in 2000, and I actually started drawing it in 1997 or 98, something like that. Anyhow, let's go through it. All the characters in the book are my First Man, from my First Man Astonishing Comics universe. So First Man, Monarch, Penumbra. I couldn't use licensed characters, so I used my own. So nice table of contents. This is my book. I didn't have anything really to do with the design. There was a designer that put everything together from the assets that I sent. I thought they did a great job. This was also at a point in my career when I did this book where when First Man originally came out, this is how I was drawing. And then I thought, you know what? I started doing some stuff for Marvel in more of a cartoony style, kind of like this drawing here. You can see the big difference between the two. And that's what I did for a few years of my career at the time I was drawing this book. So a lot of the art in this book will look more like this, cartoonier, than the more quote-unquote pseudo-realistic stuff, which I was doing before and is what I'm doing again. Because after I got done doing this type of stuff at the request of the editors I was working for at Marvel, other people I worked for after were like, you know, we like that, but we'd rather have you do your pseudo-realistic style, which, like I said, is basically what my stuff looks like now and what is more natural. Here's a little drawing I did of the character originally back when I was like 14 years old, something like that. So once again, we start off chapter 1, drawing in 3 dimensions. Everything starts with basic shapes. So I show basic shapes and the different things you can turn the shapes into. Different things. Everything starts with basic shapes, even anatomy. You want to start with basic shapes. I go into some light and shade as well. Different rendering techniques. This is very stark, high contrast, which, you know, works for certain projects, and for some projects it doesn't. So I have used that style before in my career. This is more, you could say, which was popular in the 90s, what they called the West Coast Image style, with the reflected light done in a certain way and such. So that's what that is. And then we have more crosshatchy type style. This is kind of like growing up John Byrne. I was a big fan of John Byrne's work, so that's kind of what I was going for there. And then this is kind of the style that is done throughout this book, which is
kind of Michael Golden-esque. If you don't know who Michael Golden is, he is one of the best comic book artists around. He doesn't do as much interior work anymore, but I would definitely search him out and look him up. And then I get into some perspective. You need to know the rules of perspective, of course, for drawing. 1 point, 2 point, how to line up the horizon lines, things like that. And then we break down 1 point with some examples, and 2 point. You don't have to get super in depth. Of course, there's 3 point perspective when doing perspective, you know. And of course, perspective really helps in pushing the figures and really putting foreshortening on your figures and such. Make them really coming at you. Now we get to drawing the figure. One of my favorite parts of drawing comics. Excuse my sniffles. It is winter time, so I have little snifflies going on. Okay, so we get into some figure drawing, proportion. I show the proportion of average man, and then of course the superhero proportion. Got to have that because heroic males and women as well, what we call the ideal or heroic, and then I show what the breakups are and stuff. This is what I consider the most important part, the basic shapes. Everything starts from a good foundation. You have to have a good foundation of shapes that you can easily manipulate in space, you know, different angles and stuff, using these basic shapes. These basic shapes are not cut in stone. You can exaggerate these shapes, as you'll see later in the book, for different types of figures. I break down, that was the torso, of course, the torso box. This is the waist box. The waist box kind of has the shape of tighty whities, the underwear. My buddy Bart Sears allowed me to use Brute in this book to as an example to show different body types of these two. So, and I really exaggerated Brute here with a tiny little waist, blowing his legs out and stuff. That's what I love about comic books, being able to exaggerate like that. This is showing the arms, then we show the legs. Then here I'm talking about adding the muscles, so I'm talking about musculature on the form, female muscles. Here we have 3 different styles of women. Penumbra drawn in 3 different styles. This is kind of Terry Dodson, Adam Hughes-esque, more realistic. This was kind of like the Image style back in the day, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri. And then this is what I was doing throughout this book, you know, somewhat cartoonier. This is taking the basics, adding the anatomy over top to the drawings I already did. Here we have drawing different body types, and this is where you can manipulate the shapes to fit the different body types. And then adding anatomy on to those different body types. Different male body types, female body types. You know, Wonder Woman can be drawn differently than, say, Batgirl. Superman, Batman could have different body types. Here I get into clothing. Someone wrinkles, different types of clothing. Look at this guy, he's jolly. This looks like somebody you'd see at a bar, just chilling, hanging out. Norm from Cheers. Nobody's getting that reference. Boy, I am dating myself. This is Clark Kent, basically wearing a polo shirt, a button-up cool shirt, and then a suit and jacket, because Clark Kent is Superman, and he's a buff dude. Then we have the ladies here in different clothing that I made up. Different clothing styles, a character in action, showing the wrinkles and such. Now we talk about drawing the figure, line of action, getting your figures moving. Get this line of action. Even a guy sitting down in a chair is going to have a swoop line of action to him. Balance in your figures. You know, this is nice if you're standing at attention, but if you're not standing at attention, you want to have nice flow and rhythm throughout your figures. Twisting and turning. thinking about just the basic boxes. And then here we have them in the simplified shape, twisting and turning. Foreshortening, of course, had to show depth in your figures. One way to experiment is draw a side view of your figure, project all the lines over, and then that's how you get the foreshortening of the figure. Realism versus exaggeration. Comic books should have exaggeration. It's like, yeah, that's nice, but that's painful. Oh, I got a headache. Oh my God, I've got a splitting migraine. And now putting it all together. Every good how-to book has steps you can copy. So a quick gesture, blocking in the shapes, doing the anatomy, costume detail, finish drawing. And I do that through the book using examples of my characters. So you can follow along. And then I want to show different examples of characters that aren't normal. So Blubber Boy, because he's a big blubber boy bouncing around. You can see here, start with a quick gesture, but then here you can see I took the shapes I showed earlier in the book to adapt them to Blubber Boy. And of course, Stick, his sidekick, his speedy little sidekick, same thing. Just take the shapes and manipulate them by lengthening them, thinning them out and stuff to create different characters. Drawing the head, you got to be able to know how to draw heads. So we start off with the basics for male and female, side views, female in profile 3/4 view of a head, step by step, step by step. The eyeball, different views, same with the nose. So just, breaking things down. This is an overall book to get you started on your journey in drawing comics. Mouth, ear has a Y shape when you think about it as a basic. Back of the ear, then we have creating different faces, but also creating facial shapes with basic shapes. So this guy has a triangular type face. This guy has a rectangular type face, a pear-shaped face, upside down type pear shape maybe. And the same with women. Women, you can give different looks with different face shapes as well. And of course, really cartoony here. Showing aging. Characters do age. Show how the wrinkles go. And the ladies age as well. So, and then I was able to use Babe from Bart's Brute and Babes as well. And she's like, I'm never going to age. Well, aren't you lucky? Using reference materials. This is the car I used to own. And Penumbra's like, she could be a showroom car model. So yes, this is the Mustang I used to own. There's a photograph of it. Basically, you get your photographs for your reference. And if you know the basic shapes and how to construct things using basic shapes, you can take this to draw this. This was me in college, and this is one of Bart Sears' swords. I think he let me borrow. And this was for a painting I had to do when I was in art school. Another buddy of mine from college, so it's fine to have people, reference and pose. And you can see, just with that pose of myself, I could draw a Muscle Conan type guy. I could draw a guy that's a little on the plump side. I take my buddy from school and draw him more realistic, or buffed up some, and I just make up the gun and stuff using the drawing tools you're learning. Of course, we have lighting. These are this is me from college shooting some photo reference for different types of lighting and such. Wow, look at all that hair. That is not there anymore. Backgrounds. showing once again, take a photograph, but learning the rules of perspective and basic shapes. I can draw it at this angle just by that, using a model. So this woman posed for me, and then from that, I was able to exaggerate some, spread her legs out a little more, and draw that. You know, the funny thing is, I still have that and that. These are prop guns, fake, obviously, made out of plastic. Couldn't hurt a fly unless I smashed it with it. I actually still have them. Same thing. Here, got a pose here, using her to jack up the bad guy there. He's like, oh, put me down, I'm sorry. And then same thing, got her posing here and then just making stuff up. This is my brother, phone booth. Took a couple photos of him, and by changing up the character here, that's basically me with my little bald patch. And the phone booth, what? What do you mean? We got to make the phone call. Not phone booth, but just a payphone, public payphone. What are those? They're not around anymore. And then we get into drawing the page. I talk about page layout and design. Talk about different camera angles, show examples, of course. Talking about basic, simple composition. Composition can get really, detailed and really involved. I'm just trying to keep it simple for the beginner comic book artist here. Obviously, there's ways to crop figures that are good and bad, so I show those examples here. Pacing. Pacing is how fast you want to tell the story. 3 panels, this all happens quick. The hero flies down, presses his hand, doors open, he goes in. Here he flies down. Here he's landing. Show the importance of him pressing the hand, the doors opening, him walking in, doors shutting. This slows things down. So it really just depends on what you're doing, because it's up to you as the storyteller to lead the eye around the page and such, and at what pace you want them to read. Camera flow, or not camera flow, but leading the eye around the page is also your job. And then the script. So we have a full script and a plot. So I show the differences between the two. Drawing the page, the model sheet. This is where I had different artists step in and draw their version of First Man. This was a drawing I did in kind of a Joe Madureira style. I love Joe's work. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him to do a drawing for the book, so I referenced a bunch of his work. I think Battle Chasers at the time, and did a drawing based on his style. I did have guys like J. Scott Campbell, Eric Larson, Kevin Nolan, George Perez, Brandon Peterson, Bart Sears, Mike Berwingo, and Mike Zeck all do their take. Now, the reason I did this is because I want to show you that all of us artists will tell you the same thing, which is you need a solid foundation. You need to be able to draw from the ground up with basic shapes to create figures. But how you use those basic shapes to put your figures together and your own proportion system will show the difference in style. So we all know how to construct figures and draw, but how we apply it shows the difference. So I want to show different versions of First Man drawn by different people. Here's a model sheet I did for the character. He used to be Apollo, the First Man, but now it's just First Man, and Apollo is a totally different character. If you're curious about that, go check out my Indiegogo campaign and get yourself a copy of First Man now. You can get Volume 1 and Volume 2. The link will be in the description below. Thank you. Talk about thumbnails. These are the actual size I do thumbnails right here. Then I show the stages of a page. These are my rough pencils right here. Yeah, this is my initial layout, rough pencils. From there, I tighten it up to a nice clean line drawing, as you can see. Nice and clean. And then from there, I go in and I add the shadows, the lighting, textures, all that fun stuff. It looks like Monarch has First Man trapped on this energy type wall. I want to draw a Kirby device in the background, so I really reference some Jack Kirby. I love his equipment and stuff and whatnot. Now we talk about inking. I go over some of the tools of the trade. I still use these brushes and pens. This is the ink I still use. Using your tools, practicing. Here I inked these 3 drawings with all different pens. This one was inked all with a Hunt 102 pen point. This one was inked with a 513 Hunt pen point. It's a little looser type style. And in this one, I believe I inked with entirely with a brush. So you can see the different looks you can get using different pen points and such. He's flexing. He's like, look at my muscles. This one I inked with the Gillette 291 and a brush. So this was a example all done with a 102 and a French curve. A French curve is a piece of plastic that you rule curved lines with. So I want to give this a real technical look and real crisp and clean. And the way I do that is with a French curve and a 102. This was inked all with microns, the permanent marker pens that a lot of guys are using these days. This has that John Byrne feel to it, which, you know, I grew up on John Byrne. I love his work. So here I talk about interpreting pencils. This I used the brushed ink with over Brandon's work. Love that drawing, the first man that Brandon did. Love Brandon's work. Inking Bart Sears, and I talk about the different things I did while inking these figures. Inking Eric Larson, and then lastly, inking one of my idols, George Perez. This is talking about inking breakdowns. Breakdowns are basically pencils that have no shading or rendering. So I go in and show 3 different ways to handle the same scene. These are the Mayan ruins, I believe, from that first panel of the page. And then this chapter, I want to have guests ink the same page and talk about tools they used and how they did it. So obviously, this is my inking the page, the tools I used, and what I was thinking about as I did it. Then we got Terry Austin, the great Terry Austin of inking John Byrne X-Men fame and so much other stuff. It's not even funny. I was able to be inked by Terry Austin. He did it. Oh, and then what I also did was, so this is obviously reduced down. Comic book pages are drawn 11 by 17. So this here on every page is the actual size of what it looked like when it was inked. And then this is the reduction right here. John Beatty. John and I used to share a studio together. He did a phenomenal job. I mean, John is just, he's been around forever, ultimate professional. Randy Elliott, another great inker. Tim Townsend, fantastic inker. I'd say 90% of his work has been done for Marvel. And that's it. Then I go a little bit about talking about breaking into the industry. And you have the index. So there you go. And there's me from 1998 or so. Look at that. Had a little bit of hair. Not anymore, though. So that's it. You can still get this book. You get it from third party because the book is out of print. The book came out in 2000. It went through 7 printings before it was out of print. And you can still buy it. So if you want to buy it, you can get it third party, which is nice because it might not be mint condition. You can probably get some that are that way that'll cost more, around cover price of $20, but you could probably pick it up for $4 to $5 as well if you don't care if it's in mint condition. So thank you for joining me on this journey back in time, looking through my first drawing book, Drawing Dynamic Comics. I'm your host, Andy Smith. This has been a book look. Please go back my campaign, First Man on Indiegogo. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. Bet First Man 2 now, live on Indiegogo.